Boxer Fans, Chris Robinson here. You know, Mikey, you had mentioned about you were talking about me with sparring, as far as, you know, you train out of Riverside, but sometimes, you know, you'll go to Big Bear for sparring. What is like the sparring like up in Big Bear? Like, who are some of the guys you spar with? What kind of work do you get up there?
The last time we were up there, we were sparring a few guys. We were trying to get ready for Caballero. You know, this was a few months back. So we were going to Big Bear. I was sparring, getting work in with Benavidez, Jose Benavidez.
Oh, really?
We're gonna, you know, he's real tall. He's probably as tall as Caballero. You know, 6 foot or 6'1", I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
So we needed somebody tall. He was up there for getting ready for his fight. You know, 3 weeks ago or whatever. So we were getting a few rounds with him. For that purpose, you know, trying to get ready for Caballero. The whole purpose of going to Big Bear is to get in shape. You know, the air is thinner, the altitude training, it helps you get in better shape than it does, you know, out here. We were training in Riverside on the non-sparring days, and on sparring days we'd be up there in Big Bear. We also got some other rounds in with some of the other fighters, Diaz Jr.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting some rounds in with him, and, you know, just different guys like that. This time we'd also go to other gyms to spar, but those are the guys that we spar this time up in Big Bear.
How was it sparring Jose and Joel? Like, what do you think of them as fighters?
Joel hits very hard.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you notice right away. Joel hits hard. He has heavy hands. They hit you in your shoulders or your forearms. Wherever it hits you, you feel it. Other fighters are stronger in body. They can take a punch and they can push you back, but you don't feel their power as much. With Joel, you can feel his power right away. You feel his hands. You feel his power. Like I said, no matter where he hits you, you'll feel it. That's the biggest thing that you can notice in him. With Benavidez, if he uses his distance, his long reach and height advantage, he's a very good fighter. He's got good skills. He's got good technique. He's learning still. He's very young. He's still learning. He's got more experience, you know, to come. You know, he'll learn more with experience. So he's gonna improve a lot more. But like I said, his advantage is his height and his reach. You know, those are the big things that you gotta, you know, try to, you know, kind of go around or try to make him fight. You know, to not give him that advantage, because he's got those advantages. If he fights at the distance, he's very difficult to hit.
And I heard, you know, when you were coming up, even like in your late teens or whatever, you were sparring like seasoned type of guys. Like, what are some from your maybe younger days, some names that you sparred, and what did you learn from those sessions?
Spar many fighters. We first time sparring professional fighters, we were 15 years old, and we were sparring Edwin Valero and Ponce de Leon. Those are the first two guys that I remember sparring that were professionally undefeated fighters. Ponce had, I think, 18-0. Valero was like 20-0.
Yeah.
It might have been the age that, you know, I was only 15, and maybe that's why I felt them so strong. But they hit hard. They weren't taking it easy on us. We weren't sparring many rounds anyways. We were only doing maybe 4 rounds at the most with them. But you could feel, you know, the power and their experience. They could handle you. They could move you around the way they wanted to, but all that helped us, because that made us a better fighter. You know, they taught us experience early on. They taught us, you know, little tricks that fighters might take, you know, years to learn, but we learned faster. We also spar, you know, other guys. I remember sparring in LA, you know, the Santa Cruz brothers, and, you know, these guys were big, you know, 140 pounders, and we were sparring them. They were taking it a little easy on us because we were smaller, you know, weight and younger in age, but you learn from everybody. They all have different styles. They all have different tricks that they've learned from experience. So they would, you know, do that on us. Antillon was also one of the first ones that I sparred there in LA. He was also up and coming still, but, you know, he had a lot of sparring sessions with, you know, many fighters. So he had experience just from sparring himself, not necessarily from fights, but just from sparring.
Yeah.
Manny Pacquiao, I sparred him for a few weeks when he fought Eric Morales, the rematch.
You went to the wild card?
I was at wild card.
How was that?
For like 3 weeks with
Okay.
him. I was his sparring partner. We would spar. I was a little older. I was probably 19, 20, somewhere around there. I was sparring him sometimes up to 8 rounds at a time straight. They really liked the way the sparring was turning out, so they hired me as their main sparring partner. I was fighting at 26. He was fighting at 30, I think, 26-30 when he fought the rematch with Morales. So it was similar in weight. What I felt his biggest thing was his speed. That's what I felt. His speed was greater. He had really fast hands. He still had power, but I think his speed was the biggest factor there. So I had to be careful, move around, use my jab, use my straight punches, kind of like what Morales did, straight 1-2 punch combinations, and that's what I did, and they liked it because I was kind of in a way similar style as Morales did. So we kept sparring. Spar many guys. Juan Lascano from Texas. Spar him a few times there in LA. Big guy, but just sparring. Recently we spar, not recently, but a few 2 years back or whatever, we spar Israel Vasquez for his second, third, and fourth fight with Rafa Marquez. With Marquez, we were their sparring partner, and again they liked it. I used the jab a lot, kind of like what Marquez fight, so they liked it. So we kept going. Just other fighters probably that I can't even remember, but we spar a lot of guys, and we learn from everybody. Like I said, they all have different tricks that they've learned from experience, so they show that, and we kind of try to pick up on that.
And when you would get set up with a sparring, would it be something Eduardo, your father, would set up? Would he just tell you, hey, I got sparring lined up? I mean, how would it work?
Sometimes we'd go to LA and just look for sparring, and whoever was available, we'd go in. Other times they would call my brother. Like when Pacquiao, called us, they called my brother, and my brother, took me in. We did one day, and they liked it, so they hired us to go like 3 weeks straight. So they called. Sometimes they would call from LA to spar Valero and Linares. Linares and Valero were there, and from all the guys that I sparred, Valero hit the hardest. Maybe because, like I said, maybe the weight might have been something, but the guy could hit hard. Any punch, you could just feel that hammer in his hands. It was just so hard. So I had to be very careful with him, not to get hurt. But that's what I did. I just tried to outbox him, try to not engage in the slugfest because he was hard hitting. He would drop sparring partners all the time. So one time they didn't find anybody else, so they called us, to go spar with him because we sparred before, and we went like 2 weeks straight. And I mean, I never got dropped, I never got hurt, but like I said, I was careful not to fall into that. And those are some of the times that they would call us. Israel Vasquez called us. They knew I was right-handed, similar style. Use my jab a lot, straight punches, kind of like Marquez used to fight. So they called us, they liked it, so they hired us to be their sparring partner. Other times, we would just go to LA. If I need sparring, I'm the one in LA asking for sparring, and whoever's there, sometimes it happens to be a champion, sometimes it's just up and coming fighter, and we'll end up sparring.
Now, is there any sessions in particular that got really heated and really intense, to where it just became kind of like a real war, to where you felt yourself really tested and pushed to the limit?
Not necessarily that heated, not that of a fight, but even though it's sparring, it's not it's not like you're playing. You're sparring, you're working out. You may be 75-80% there, you're not going all out, but you're not. I mean, I wasn't expecting to knock anybody down or knock anybody out. These guys are experienced fighters. I gotta be careful with these guys, but I wasn't gonna let them beat me up either. So some of the fighters, you do get a little exchange here and there, and sometimes you feel it. They're not gonna let a little kid come in and tell them beat them up or slap them around. So they would also answer back pretty solid. So you got to be careful, but it's just sparring. You're not in there trying to knock each other out. I've never gone to a sparring session with those intentions of I'm gonna hurt this guy or I'm gonna hurt this guy to prove a point. Nothing like that.
And do you ever go to Oxnard? Your brother Robert Garcia's gym. Do you ever go there to get sparring?
We actually, they've been coming down. Well, not Robert necessarily, but my nephew Pelos was coming down with Genny, Russian. He's been coming down to get me some sparring. He might be coming down today, get some sparring for me. I haven't been going to Oxnard. but they've been coming down. So we still get to work, and they've also came down in other camps before, 2-3 times a week to bring other sparring partners for me.
And when you're kind of younger coming up, whether it was a Pacquiao, Linares, or Valero, whether it was your brother or Eduardo, what would they tell you in the corner just to try to, like, advice would they give you as they oversaw your sparring,
Well, the number one thing was just to be careful, not to get caught up with bravery or whatever. Be fight the fight that best suits us. Those times with like Valero or with Pacquiao, these guys were experienced, strong fighters, world champions. So you got to be careful. Don't go in there thinking you're gonna knock them out or prove a point. All you're gonna do is probably get them mad and they'll show you who's the boss, and that would probably would got hurt. So I never wanted to start anything up because I knew I was less experienced, smaller in weight. So that wasn't the point. The point was to learn. So they would just tell me, be careful, use the jab, stay on the outside, don't get caught up in an exchange too long, because that's when they were most likely to be dangerous. So I follow instructions. I stay on the outside, use my jab, follow up with the right hand, straight right hand, and just keep it that way. Learn from that, and when we were on the inside, they could tell the difference in the weight. They would push me back so easily. So why even try to push them back? Just be safe. That's the main thing that they would say.
And what about Jorge Linares in particular? He, very slick guy, pretty sharp puncher. When did you spar him, and what was it like going up against him?
I didn't spar him. My nephew Pelo sparred. We would go to spar Linares and Valero, but I would spar Valero. My nephew would spar Linares. But seeing him spar, he is very slick. He had really good footwork and fast hands. But my nephew, he was able to hold his ground. My nephew likes to exchange more than I do, so he would put the pressure on, and Linares would try to outbox him, and he was probably the better fighter at sparring sessions. But my nephew was able to do well against him, putting pressure and trying to get him to the ropes, that kind of thing.
And in your eyes, how important is sparring towards like honing a fighter's skills, and what have all your sparring sessions with these fighters like? How has it improved you as a fighter?
I think sparring is probably the best way to learn, or at least to practice what you learn, outside the ring. You practice in the mitts, you practice, different combinations, how to turn your punch, how to actually, place your foot at a certain angle for a certain punch. You practice on the body bag, you practice on speed bag, all this different thing, but you apply all that in sparring. It gives you the best conditioning that you can get is in sparring. You get the best, condition from sparring, but you also practice in sparring because it's all around. It's flowing motion. You're not just practicing one thing. You got to practice defense. You got to practice offense. You got to practice footwork, timing, counter punching. Everything goes in play. It's almost like a fight. So from sparring, you really learn more than just hitting the bag. Obviously, you practice in sparring, and you learn from it, and that's what helps you go in the ring for the fight night.
And last question. I know one guy you sparred, a strong guy, Brandon Rios.
Yeah.
How many rounds, how do you think you've gone with him, and what's it like going up against Bam Bam?
The most we ever sparred with him is probably maybe 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Earlier, when he was in smaller weight, we'd probably be doing 4 or 5 rounds because we were still up and coming, so there wasn't that much need to do many more rounds. Now that we're fighting 10, 12 round fights, he's that much bigger than me that I can probably only hold on maybe 4 or 5 rounds. Not that I could probably try to do more, but it's his big size advantage over me that we don't want to risk getting hurt. And that's the main thing. Like I said, safety. You got to be safe. You want to get in shape, not get hurt. So with him, I sparred him, maybe a year ago was the last time that I sparred with him. We probably did 4 or 5 rounds or something. I don't know. But I'm able to do pretty well. But his strength, his size just tires me out faster than other guys. I spar other guys that are bigger than me, like Benavidez, and other fighters that were big, Valero and all these guys. But with Brandon, it's just the size advantage is the biggest factor.
Got you. Thank you, Mike.